Hi, I'm Paris, and last Friday I drove 500 miles out to far west Texas to climb Guadalupe Peak. It's the highest point in Texas at 8,752 feet elevation. I successfully climbed it 5 years ago, though it was a challenge getting back down in the dark because it took me so long. But I had just some feeling that I needed to go back and do it again. In the intervening 5 years, I've had to deal with heart disease, cancer diagnosis, almost 3 years now of cancer treatments, which still continue, and trying not to get COVID while immunosuppressed. It was fun and exciting being out on a road trip. Also a little bit scary though, because I've gotten used to having people around me who are checking up on me. How are you feeling today? How are you doing? Don't push yourself too hard. Nobody was going to say that to me out there. Nobody knew me out there. This was my first time back in 5 years, and I had time the afternoon before my climb to go do a little photo shooting. I wanted to have some shots with my I Climbed Guadalupe Peak t-shirt, standing so you could see Guadalupe Peak next to me, and hey, look, that's what the shirt shows. I also passed right in front of the Blue Origin launch site. That's the spaceship by Amazon's owner Jeff Bezos. He went up in it along with William Shatner, who plays Captain Kirk. So cool, I'm here at the Blue Origin launch site. They actually launch them from right back over here. You can't see a whole lot, but I just realized right over here up Highway 54, that's Guadalupe Peak right there. That means from the summit of Guadalupe Peak, you could watch one of the launches here. I've got to come back and do that. But first I had to find out, can I still get to the top of Guadalupe Peak? So back to the hotel, rested up, packed my backpack, was all ready to go early the next morning, got up there, lots of people climbing on a very nice Saturday morning. And so with blue skies and cool, refreshing mountain air, I started at about 5,600 feet at the Pine Springs campground, got to the trailhead, and had a goal of getting up to 8,752 feet. Hello from the way up Guadalupe Peak. Let's see if you can see a little bit behind me. That's actually not the peak. That's just a summit. I got a ways to go, not even a quarter of the way in yet. Giving me a good workout, I'll tell you that, but it's a beautiful view. Let me get my hand to hold steady here. Out behind me. Haven't used my oxygen yet. I'm saving that, but I am staying hydrated. Well, I've made it a quarter of the way up to the top of Guadalupe Peak. That's not actually it. I don't know if you can see the peak up there. That's the peak before the peak. I like the view better this way. That shows how far I've come. At this point, I'm about a quarter of the way up. It's the hardest mile, the first mile of the 4 miles to get to the top, but I've already gone through about half of my energy, so it'd be iffy to get to the top. I definitely wouldn't be making it back down. So discretion being the better part of valor and all that, I think this is my high point for today. But it's not the last time I'm going to try it. After all, I've got this shirt. I've got to keep working on this. I will come back in the fall after I'm off Lupron, hopefully no longer anemic. I can actually build up some muscle mass and do some good training and come back here before it gets too cold and get to the top that time. And so I couldn't do it. I didn't record anymore the rest of the way down or down. I was thinking of recording kind of how disappointed I was in myself when I finally got back to my minivan, but I didn't even have the energy to do that. I can't describe how worn out I was when I got back to the bottom, even though I had only climbed a quarter of the way up. But this might give you some idea. When I finally got back to the trailhead and got into the parking lot, it was still about another quarter mile to where I had parked there. And it was paved and if anything, a little bit of a downhill incline. And I noticed that I was walking in just sort of a slow shuffle. And I asked myself, why are you walking like this? Come on, we're back down here in the parking lot. Let's go get in the minivan. And I told myself, walk normally. Let's go at a normal pace. I could not do it. I didn't have the energy to move my legs in a normal walking fashion. I couldn't pick up the feet and do this. It was just this. And I realized if someone had been behind me hitting me with a stick to get me to go faster, I could not have gone any faster. The fuel tank was all the way down below E. The main thought in my head when I got into the minivan was, I am so glad I turned around when I did, because I just barely made it back here without assistance. If I decided, well, to make it seem more presentable, let me at least get halfway up there before turning around and come back down. I would have gotten back to that point that I showed where I was filming the up and the down. I might have made it back there, and that would have been about as far as I could have gone unaided. And that would have been an embarrassing mess, having to ask people to help me down the mountain. Speaking of embarrassing, I feel embarrassed that I thought I could do that I talked about how I was going to do that, and I couldn't come close to doing that. And I called my family to let them know I was done. 4 hours after starting, I was back in the parking lot, and I'd given it my all, but that's all there was. And they were supportive. Oh, we're proud of you for trying. But I wanted to say, don't you remember what Yoda said? Do or do not. There is no try. And I did not. And I did not pass one person on the mountain. Not going up for the first couple hours, and even after I turned and headed back down, people who had already been all the way to the summit and come all the way back to that point, they were passing me going down. There was one woman who looked to be about my age, and she was hiking with a younger man, maybe her son, maybe just a younger man. And I was able to pretty much stay ahead of her. I'd be up ahead, and then they'd catch up to me, and I'd go. And I thought, hey, there's somebody I'm able to stay ahead on this mountain. But then one of the times when they were coming up, I heard her talking to the man that she was with about how her titanium hip was giving her trouble. And then when I got to the point, 1/4 of the way up, where I decided to call it quits, she finally caught up, and she and he went on further. And I was hoping she wasn't going to push it too far with her hip replacement, because as hard as it is going up, it can be harder on joints coming back down. But she had a young man at least to lean on. So even the titanium hip lady got further up the mountain than I did. I did notice, it was mostly younger people climbing, but I did notice a half dozen or more men older than me who were in good shape. I mean, they looked to be the outdoorsy sorts, and they all were fairly tall, 6'2", 6'3", maybe 175, and not using the trekking poles like I was, planting them and figuring how I can get up over around the next rock without having to actually bend my leg to do it, and doing all these gyrations. They're just lifting their legs up and going fast. Oh, to be like that when I'm 70 or 75, or even now, would be nice. And I followed my brother's advice to take a number of extended breaks, to keep hydrated, to have some snacks that had some carbs in it to give me energy. But I needed to take breaks even going down so I could get all the way down. When I was about halfway down, sitting in a little shade off to the side so I wouldn't block people on the trail, and nibbling my snacks and trying to get energy to keep going, I hear someone talking in a loud voice, and I could hear they were on speakerphone. It was a young guy in his early 20s, I would say, walking without any trekking poles, but his phone in his hand on speakerphone, discussing some business deals with someone, and coming up the trail and not out of breath. So I found my limits. I didn't expect them to be as far down low as they were, but that's where they were, and I did not make the decision to quit without really looking inside and seeing there's not much left there to draw on. I better head back down. I thought there was more there. I was counting on that actually for this climb, for some climbs I thought I'd do this summer, for climbing Aconcagua at 22,000 feet elevation in Argentina in January upcoming. I'm thinking I'm going to have to push all those plans back at least a little, at least until I can have more reserve in here to be able to do these things. And I think the lesson for me to take away from this experience is that just because you really hope something, just because you want to believe something, reality doesn't care about those things. Things are how they are, and you have to accept it. The reason I mention that is because in a couple weeks I'm going for what may be my last Lupron shot, which you would think would have me delighted because I hate being on Lupron, and I've mentioned it in other videos, all the things that it's preventing me from doing. But it's also my last cancer treatment. So the shot that I get should last 3 months, and when it wears off, my testosterone will come back up, and then we'll see what all these cancer treatments I've been through, the chemo, the radiation, the 3 years of Lupron, we'll see what they've done. Will my prostate cancer stay in remission? I think in some way I felt like if I can do this, I can still be the person I was 5 years ago before I had cancer and climb to the Guadalupe Peak. I sort of take control over things and I can make things happen. But I think I wanted to control the narrative, and control, maybe that's the key word. I want to be in control of the situation and not at the mercy of reality after my last cancer treatment finishes. So maybe by climbing Guadalupe Peak against the odds, I could assert that I could bring out from somewhere deep inside me the power to do that, and I could take control of that situation, and that would allow me to think that even when this last cancer treatment finishes, that I'm in control of the situation. And it's a sobering realization that you're just going to have to deal with what comes, but it doesn't have to be a hopeless realization, because I tell you, I am so incredibly impressed with the me of 5 years ago that was overweight. I weighed 50 pounds more then than I do now, and I didn't know about what my heart rate and blood oxygen and everything was doing. I was just ignorant of the whole thing and just blundered my way up the mountain. I should have turned around sooner because it took me so many hours. I had to come down in the dark. I didn't have a flashlight, and I pushed myself to the absolute limit there. I was stronger than I knew I could be, and even if physically I don't have that strength right now, that same person is still inside here, and I may not be able to keep putting one foot in front of the other to climb up that mountain right now, but I do have still deep in that reserve the ability to keep putting one foot in front of the other in life to keep going where I need to go. And maybe that's reality, maybe that's just what I want to believe, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And I'll see you from closer to sea level on the next review. So a couple times I came very close to saying it's just too much further and just going back, but then no, I know I am never going to come back here and do this again. If I don't do it this time, it's not going to happen. After 4 hours of climbing, I come around the bend and see I have this much further to go. It's like I haven't even started yet. So with that, I would push myself a little further, and the next time I thought, I should just turn around. It turned out there was a downhill stretch for a while that made it a little easier. And the people coming down were being very encouraging. Oh yeah, you only got about another hour. Oh, the view is great. You're gonna love it. Keep going. So people encouraged me and I kept on going. One last surprise. Around the corner, it's the marker indicating the summit. 6.5 hours after starting out, I made it to the summit. And it's cool up there. You have that 360 view. There's the big metal triangle. There's the ammo can with the journal so that you can sign your name, when you climbed, where you're from, and put in a comment. So I spent about 40 minutes up at the top recovering some energy.